past the line, but you're the night sky. I'm trying to see your stars, but I've always feared the dark. Now I see brightly, I can feel your silence. You always feel so far when your stars have burnt out and your heart makes no sound. I'll find valid in your eyes. You'll always be my night sky. You'll always be my night sky.
Inside my thoughts, and when I start to think, oh, the time how close it starts to end up on the brink. I tried so hard, but all these scars, they cut so deep I bleed. I fell so fast from heaven, it's like someone clipped my wings. Now I'm falling, and I can't see the ground. Can we stop this gravity? It keeps bringing me down. I can't breathe and I don't wanna die. Can we stop this gravity? 'Cause I don't wanna say goodbye. I laid awake just begging to let go. I almost got to suicidal thoughts, but you stepped in. An angel sent from heaven showed me how to live again. Now I'm falling and I can't see the ground. Can we stop this gravity? It keeps bringing me down. I can't breathe and I don't wanna die. Can we stop this gravity? 'Cause I don't wanna say goodbye.
Where we are going, dear. So baby, hold on to me. sometimes, but I'd never say goodbye or ever leave this stuff behind. When it's good, it's amazing. When it's bad, it's uneasy. I wouldn't have it another way. There's no other way. Yeah. When it hurts like this, have a light, beat it, have a light, have a light, have a light, have a light, beat it, have a light. When it hurts like this, have a light, 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 when it hurts like this. And I've been chillin', watching the ocean with you, baby, up with a slow motion crew. And
Welcome into Hardcore Penn State. Oh, I'm not recording down there. There we go. Hi, everyone on YouTube. Hope everyone on YouTube is doing well. Welcome into Hardcore Penn State Football. Yes, we are back for 2 episodes in 2 days. We have the privilege of PSU Dylan joining us for a exclusive interview. It's not going to be a crazy long show today, but we got some recruiting to talk about. We got some kind of behind the scenes personal relationship kind of conversation, if you will, today. We'll get right into that in just 1 second. Appreciate y'all being here. Welcome into Hardcore Penn State Football. I'm Corey Listoki. With me, as always, the great Shawn Kane. And also, special guest to the show, PSU Dylan. How are you doing today, Dylan and Shawn?
Pretty well. How are you guys?
Doing great. Doing great.
You know, I don't know if is PSU Dylan what you like to go by? I saw you put your name down, your last name. Is that confidential? Do people know your last name, or is it like kind of like Batman?
I'm pretty open about like who I am. Like, I kind of link my personal Instagram and my account and stuff. Like, I don't mind people knowing like my last name and everything, but I don't know. I was first like 4 or 5 years of my account, I was Penn State gang, but I changed it kind of like just in case copyright issues down the line, like using Penn State and all that. So
yeah, hopefully we don't fall into something like that.
Yeah, honestly.
No, that's a good point. Well, okay, so you're very, very, very popular on Instagram, and we'll talk about some of the other things that you're starting to get your feet wet in as well. But where did this all start? How did it kind of come into fruition? And then, I mean, it's exploded. So run us through, because, I mean, we have some fans that probably aren't even on Instagram. What is it that you do? How did it start? Just kind of give us the rundown.
yeah, I mean, right now I'm pretty much just independently covering Penn State football. I'm into graphic design. I've been into that since I was like 13. So I started the account in my freshman year of high school, just kind of messing around. I just thought I would post like pictures of like Penn State football, like pictures I thought were cool and stuff. Just kind of bored, in high school, just messing around. And once I got into graphic design, that's kind of when it took off. I started to incorporate that into my page, and I started getting serious about it because I started picking up some followers. And since then, it's just kind of been building on that, learning new things, just trying to learn a bunch of new things to incorporate that into my page. So, yeah.
And then, I mean, so you get more and more popular, and then all of a sudden, I mean, I haven't checked the numbers, but I'm pretty sure probably every current 2024 class member, I'm guessing probably every 2023, 2022, I mean, pretty much every Penn State football player follows you. I mean, and then when did they start reaching out to you, or do they reach out to you? Like, what kind of relationships have you began to build there?
Yeah, nothing like extremely close, but I have gotten to know like a handful of guys on the team. Lennon Tangwall is really cool. I talked to Ken Talley a lot. It's a shame what happened with him. He had to transfer out, but he's a cool guy. Just a lot of different recruits. Usually it starts when they're in high school, just recruiting. I'll just pick up conversation with them, and since I'm kind of around their age range, it's pretty easy to get a conversation going, and they just like to talk, just talking about normal stuff 19, 20-year-olds, 18-year-olds would talk about. It's just building relationships. It helps a lot because I can get a lot of information off of them. Not like, I'm not using them or anything, but it's just cool having those relationships because they really helps me with, getting inside, getting an ear, in the program. So it's pretty cool in that regard.
I mean, there's got to be some level of trust there too, right? Which is pretty cool, right? I mean, a lot of these guys are coming to you in some sort of level of comfort, and so that's pretty cool. But you're able to kind of have that. I do kind of like to remind people of that all the time, especially now with name, image, and likeness taking off. These guys are still guys at the end of the day. And when we were at Nittanyville all the time and we were in school, it was like, hey, like they are still college kids, or in your case, some of these guys are still in high school. They are still people, and there is a life outside of football. Maybe it is not as much anymore, but I do think that's cool that you kind of get to have those relationships. What you got, Shawn?
Yeah, Dylan. Again, thanks for joining us. Yeah, I think when you're basically a contemporary, I mean that gives you a unique perspective in that way. So I do want to talk to you about the latest news we've had, and that's Trey Potts coming to Happy Valley. Probably he'll be coming in the summer. What's your take on Trey Potts coming in?
I mean, I think it's a really under the radar pickup. A lot of people don't. I think if God forbid one of those guys, Singleton Allen, were to go down, a lot of people would realize how big of a pickup this is, especially in that instance. Right now, there are 2 scholarship running backs on the roster. Just that's not great. So they were really trying to find something. That running back 3 in the portal. I'm surprised they were able to find someone who's willing to come in and knowingly sit behind Singleton and Allen, take less reps, especially as an experienced guy. In the same conference too. That's pretty crazy. They got a Big Ten running back with experience. But I mean, if one of those guys goes down, he's going to be like 20 carries a game, some games maybe. So I think that's pretty big. I checked out his highlights. I'm not going to act like I've been watching his film for a day, but I did check out some of his highlights. He honestly reminds me of a bigger Ricky Slade, like what Ricky Slade could have turned into. He's really quick in the short field. He's explosive. Open space. I think he's a really solid running back 3 option. It's pretty cool they got him.
The 20. Yeah, first of all, we talked about it a little bit last night too. I mean, it's just a huge get from a depth perspective. It opens up the door for a Nick Singleton and a Katron Allen to still contribute on special teams because you're not as concerned. I mean, it's Trey Potts joining is probably the best thing that could have happened to Penn State. I mean, we were wondering all spring, hey, are they going to be able to get that third running back, scholarship running back? And they've been able to do that. So there's no way of undervaluing that. I want to talk about some of the early enrollees because those guys have just been on campus now for a quick 3.5 months now. What has your impression been of those? Have you heard anything? Have you heard anything as far as guys that have been able to adapt well? And I mean, we're hearing some things about Tony Rojas can't stop eating, but I was just curious, what else have you heard?
Yeah, I mean, there's Tony, put it on 29 pounds. That's what Franklin said. That's pretty insane. But Tamir Robinson, I think maybe next year he's going to be a really exciting player. He's still recovering from that ACL tear, I guess. But he's like a safety DN hybrid in high school, which is just wild to think about. But I think he's like 6'4", 240 right now, so he could slide down to DN eventually, but I mean, I think he's a really exciting player that not a ton of people are talking about. He's one of my favorites in the class for the early enrollees. I think he could be really good. Kavion Keys, I was hoping he would early enroll because he could put on some weight just like Tony. But I think when he comes in, if he can gain some weight, I think he could maybe burn a red shirt too if he can put on that weight pretty quick before the season. But Kavion Keys is another one I'm really excited about. I like him in that class a lot.
Well, yeah, we actually talked about him a little bit yesterday too, and his recruitment. I mean, maybe that's one that maybe go down a little bit. I don't know how familiar you were with his recruitment, from like a personal level. But I mean, just following it from the outside was nuts, right? I mean, it was like 1 month, oh, there's no way Penn State gets them. The next month, oh, maybe the door's still open. And the next, I think it was like, I want to say it was like August 5th or August 7th or so when he finally decided to commit. And I was like, wow, Penn State really was able to snag him away from North Carolina. I mean, do you remember that? Were there any, were you as much in the kind of the seesawing as everybody else was?
Yeah, I think it was early September when he committed because I was in class. So it was, yeah, like you said, it was kind of out of nowhere. It was looking like Carolina, and the more kind of time went on, it was looking less likely like he'd be able to flip to Penn State. But I guess that in-home visit was the thing that really flipped it in Penn State's favor. After that, he kind of, I guess, thought about it, and the staff wanted a decision like then or not at all. Like, you just got to make a decision, kind of an ultimatum, this type of deal. And I guess he went Penn State. It makes sense. You think about it, like Carolina hasn't really put out a ton of great linebackers, but it's still a good school. I really like North Carolina, but I think he made the right decision. I think he'll be a really good backer here.
Yeah, I'm very excited for him. Yeah, you're right. I think it was September. Maybe he decommitted in August, maybe, and then finished the job in September. But yeah, that was just a crazy one I remember when they, like, in the early signing period, I forget exactly. I think Franklin said something about like wearing the right color blue or something like that, and it was clearly that Franklin was very like glad that recruitment was over, because that was a marathon, not a sprint.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. I also wanted to ask you, Dylan, Deion Barnes. I mean, that's been a huge story that Deion Barnes is the new defensive line coach. So what exactly is it about him that connects him so well to these kids from Philadelphia?
Yeah, I think just being such a young, like, charismatic guy, I think that alone like helps any type of coach, like, a ton in recruiting. He's had those connections since he coached. I think it was in Northeast. He was a defensive coordinator there, maybe. But just he's always had those inroads with Philly, and obviously, like, if you hold on to those, you keep moving up the ranks. It just happened to be a really good situation for him to step into, and I mean, I think he's going to be great on the recruiting trail. I think that'll be really exciting to follow along.
Have you heard anything from the players specifically as far as like the excitement level, or any of the recruits mentioned anything to you about that?
Yeah, a couple guys I asked around. I think Jamil Lyons is one of the first guys I reached out to about that. He really wanted him to be hired. He's a Philly guy, obviously. Not committed yet, but Malachi Williams, I know that should be someone that hire really affects. Yeah, he definitely, with the Philly guys especially, I think he'll be able to clean up in Philly pretty easily.
Yeah, you would think. I mean, between him and Terry Smith, you feel pretty good as far as the Philly area is concerned moving forward. No doubt about that.
Yeah.
When you as a coach as a whole, not just DM Barnes, but all the coaches, I mean, we talk a lot about different things that recruits want nowadays. Obviously, name, image, and likeness is going to play a role in that now too. But I guess I'm just curious, are there certain things that, like, when you talk to these guys, that always stand out? Like, is it always the relationships with the coaches? I know recently now with some more of the facilities being upgraded, that has been a little bit more of a talking point. But, I mean, what stands out when you hear back from these guys?
Yeah, I think it's more just family atmosphere, and it's a relationship staff more than anything. They try to build those relationships usually early on in the process. Like, you're seeing a lot more like sophomore, freshman offers going out to those, I guess, 2026 guys right now. I've seen a couple 2027 offers. They just try to get on those kids early and start building those relationships. We're starting to see, I think, a little more like retainment with the coaches. They're retaining a lot more coaching staff, which helps, keeping those guys long term since they're building those relationships. But then the family atmosphere thing, I think that was the main reason that Penn State kind of had that a little bit off year with recruiting during COVID. They couldn't get those guys on campus and actually talk to them face to face. The staff likes to really build those relationships and then like capitalize on that in person. They're just really charismatic guys. It seems like all those guys, they just love talking to people. They love getting to know people. And I think that goes a long way in building relationships.
Yeah, and one of the things that's undeniable now is the impact of NIL on recruiting. Do you feel like Penn State's, NIL house is more in order than it was let's say, than it was 6 months ago?
Oh, it's definitely on the right track. They dug themselves in a little bit of a hole, but I think it's coming around. It's getting in the right direction. I think it's at least in the right dimension, the right tier now, to where they can at least compete for guys who are looking a little bit more for NIL. But I don't think that's a thing that really hurts Penn State too much, even if they're lacking in it. Just because they don't want guys that are just looking for number one, NIL. That's the thing they're after. They want guys who want to play for Penn State, who love playing at Penn State, love being at Penn State, going to school there. Obviously, if they want NIL, I think Quentin Martin has been mentioned a lot. He's looking for a little bit of NIL. They can put a package together for someone. But if they're just looking for NIL in the first place, I don't think that's someone that Penn State's really going to go after too hard.
Yeah, well, since you brought up Quentin Martin, we've heard rumblings. A couple of different recruiting sites have put in some predictions that maybe he's Penn State as at least in the lead. I believe Ryan Snyder from On3 still thinks it's probably going to be a summer commitment there. You have any thoughts as far as that? I don't know what your relationship with him specifically is, but do you think Penn State's in a good position as of April 6th?
Yeah, I don't really talk to Quentin too much, but I would say they have a good relationship with him. I think they're probably up there. I wouldn't say they're the outright leader. I don't think he knows who his leader is right now. I think he's just kind of sitting back and letting the process take place. But Pitt's there should be one of those three. I think that's, if he takes all of his official visits, I think it'd be those three in the summer.
Yeah, that'd be obviously be a close one to watch, being the number one player in the state of Pennsylvania. Do you ever have you had guys come to you as far as name, image, and likeness goes, or as far as just trying to gain publicity for themselves and to push their own account? I'm just curious, how do you handle those kind of requests? Whether it's, hey, can you promote me? Is it always a yes, or is it I guess I'm curious kind of what goes into who you go after as far as building relationships with, or is it like an open door? Whoever, recruit wise, not saying every Penn State fan should become DMing you, but recruit wise, do you pretty much have an open door policy with these guys?
Yeah, I love people. I love talking to people about anything, especially Penn State football, obviously. But sometimes it'll be me initiating the contact. Sometimes recruits or players will come to me and initiate the contact. But it's not really related to NIL much, as far as who I'm talking to. Yeah, I just like talking to people, honestly.
Before we go into some specifics with recruiting, I do want to ask you about the deal you signed with the Cliffords and company as far as Limitless NIL, which I'm not sure if that's still the name of it anymore.
Yep.
What did that entail? What does that mean moving forward? I guess that happened, maybe a month and a half ago now?
Yeah, 8 weeks, something like that. I pretty much just signed with them to help promote their NIL deals. So they're an agency. They're just finding businesses. They're finding players and putting them together for deals. Mostly you're not going to see a ton of Nick Singletons out of them. It's more players who a Curtis Jacobs maybe, who doesn't have as much household name to him, but he's still a very good player. But they're just linking them up, and then I'm pretty much partnering with them to help promote the posts, because a lot of my following is State College, local following. So I'm just getting the deals out there so that more local people can see it, pretty much.
I think a lot of the Penn State collectives could learn a lot from you as far as the promotion and the organization. And it's kind of pathetic that, these collectives that are supposed to be in charge of millions of dollars and funneling this money to athletes, and yet as far as football goes, you're the biggest name, at least on Instagram. You know what I mean? It shows how well you do your stuff, but also it is sort of embarrassing that these collectives that are supposed to literally have people hired to run marketing can't even come close to what you've been able to do. I think that's kind of hilarious.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I've heard, obviously it's kind of starting to go public now. A lot of stuff with the Success with Honor, a couple names on there that I'm sure a lot of the viewers are aware of by now. Hopefully they get voted off. We'll see, because they're definitely not doing their best for Penn State football right now. Don't seem to be in favor of, actually raising money for the athletes. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's funny, like how many people are now interested in voting in the Board of Trustees. Like I actually am going to be voting in the Board of Trustees election for the first time ever. So it's definitely interesting in that way. What do you think of the other? I know Michael Motti has an NIL agency that he's working with. What are the better ones at Penn State, I should say? Because everybody knows Success with Honor. That's the one that gets promoted at football games and everything. But which ones, I know Limitless, which ones are the ones really doing the work that people just aren't seeing right now as much?
I mean, obviously Limitless, I'm working with them. I know we're doing things the right way. They're trying to build from the ground up and make the right connections, do the right thing for Penn State football to kind of build it long term, not just trying to scrape together a few donations, like one-time donations. They're trying to actually, benefit the athletes first. But Lions Legacy Club is the other one I would say. You mentioned Michael Motti. He's kind of starting to come to the forefront to be in charge of that. I've actually been in a little bit of connection with him. He's based in Harrisburg right now. So he's doing some good work for them. I think a few months from now, I think closer to the season especially, we'll start to see a lot more money rolling in on that front with Lions Legacy Club.
Yeah, we're in talks with Mike right now as far as setting up an interview with him. Probably won't come out until a month and a half from now because it will be while I'm on vacation. But yeah, we're looking forward to sitting down with Mr. Motti and kind of hearing his perspective on things. I think it's going to be pretty enlightening. So yeah, that should be a good one to have for sure. It's cool that you've been in talks with him too. So that's, to me, that's a good sign too, that some of these people that can do things are doing things. Okay, let's talk recruiting. 2024 class, I think it's like 13th nationally, roughly right now. It's obviously very early on. The summer, whether or not people realize it or not, the summer is kind of the new December for what it was maybe 5-6 years ago. The summer is where everything happens. All the official visits. I mean, Penn State's class is probably going to grow from 6 to probably, maybe up to 15 before the summer's over, maybe even more than that. So the summer's kind of where it's all at. Names that you feel Penn State fans should be aware of that maybe aren't aware of right now.
Yeah. We were talking about it before the show. Antoine Belgrade-Shorter. He's the teammate down there at Mandarin of John Mitchell, who they just picked up at corner. He's another corner that staff's very high on out of there. He actually just dropped the top 3. It's Penn State, UCF, Miami, I believe. And I think something could actually be coming up on the commitment front with him soon. A couple other names, Malachi Williams seems to be picking up some buzz with him. Michael Van Buren, I think he's kind of emerging as their number 1 quarterback target, the realistic quarterback target at least. So he has, I believe, a June 2nd official visit set up. I'm not sure if he'll make it to that visit before committing. I'm kind of thinking it seems like a May commitment for him now. I think that's what that one's turning into. Off the top of my head, I think of a couple other guys. Keelan Adams is one that I personally really like in this class. We'll see with him. He's kind of a quiet guy, so not really sure if Penn State still leads, but I know at one point they were definitely his number 1. But he should be coming up for an official visit. A couple other guys, William Satterwhite. That's definitely one more they want. I think they want one more interior lineman, and then they probably want 3-4 offensive tackles in the class. But he's a really good offensive guard out of Ohio that I think people should definitely know his name.
Yeah, one of the
I know you're gonna go to this guy. Go ahead, Shawn.
Okay. One of the names we heard a lot about a few months back was Kevin Haywood. I know he was leaning toward Penn State, then things got quiet. Is everything still looking good on the Kevin Haywood front?
Yeah, I think he ultimately ends up at Penn State. He moved to, I think, Pope John, some school like that. in Royersford, PA, I guess is where it is. So I think the school change kind of had him focus more on that than recruiting. But I'd still say like Penn State sits in a really good spot with him. I think he probably ultimately ends up here. But Michigan's pushing, Tennessee's pushing. I think it'll come down to one of those 3 schools.
Yeah, let me just recap some of those names there. Belgrave Shorter is a 3-4-star guy out of Florida as well. Again, teammates with the latest commit in John Mitchell. Malachi Williams, another defensive back. Defensive line.
And yep.
Yeah, sorry. I thought, Sean, you're going to ask about the quarterback and Michael Van Buren because we talked about him a little bit yesterday too. That seems to be the quarterback now, right? I mean, I think Penn State wants to take 2, but Van Buren seems to be the number 1, and then maybe they still got to figure out who the second guy is going to be. But Van Buren seems to be their number 1 choice right now. Yeah,
it's been talked about a bunch. Like they kind of want one of the 2 between Van Buren and Samaj Jones, the St. Joe's Prep quarterback, because they're both like sub 6 foot, right around there, like 5'10", 5'11". If you're going to take a multiple quarterback class, which they should be this cycle, you don't want like 2 of the same guys, like the same style quarterback. You want to find a different style of quarterback if you can, mix it up, like keep a little bit of diversity in the room. So it seems like Van Buren's trying in Penn State right now. Jones, he just put out a little graphic, I think, official visits, and Penn State wasn't included in that. He had a top 4, and they announced 3 official visits, so excluding Penn State. So it kind of seems like they might be dropping a little bit of contact with him. So it seems like Van Buren's their choice. I don't know about
interesting,
but Miles O'Neill, I think, would be one to watch out of Massachusetts. I think they're going to see him throw in a month or 2. So I think things could progress there if they like what they see.
And then I wanted to go to Keelan Adams. We've been very big fans of Keelan Adams. He had a relationship with Marcus Hagans when Hagans was still at Virginia. Yeah, that one to me is one that the way Penn State's recruited Virginia, and because of the previous relationships, I almost feel like this is a can't miss for Penn State as far as the relationships built. You've dominated that region lately. And I think he's super duper talented. And we talk a lot on the show about Ohio State and their ability to recruit blue chip receivers and convert those blue chips into successful product. I think this is just another opportunity for Penn State to maybe do that with a guy like Keelan Adams.
Yeah. I mean, I think it might come down to Penn State and Virginia Tech. It seems to be the 2 that he's in contact with the most right now. He has been picking up some good offers recently. I think he got Alabama, maybe Oklahoma. I know he got a couple good offers like that. Definitely Alabama. But I'm not so sure if he's a take of those schools. I know he really likes Ohio State, but they seem to be filling up the class pretty quickly now, as they always do with 5 stars. It's pretty frustrating, but I'd love to have Keelan Adams in the class. I think he's a pretty good option. I think when it comes down to it, they should be able to get him.
And then offensive line, I mean, we talked about 2 weeks ago, we did a spring preview. The offensive line is so talented this year, but I mean, you seriously could see 5 to 7 guys be gone next year. And that just means they're going to have a heavy class this year. You mentioned probably taking another inside guy. Then, I mean, I think they could probably end up taking 3 more offensive tackles, maybe. So it'd be interesting to see there. I'm glad, Sean, that you asked about Haywood, because that's one that we thought maybe could have happened the next month and kind of has chilled out a little bit. And I do appreciate that. I think the Satterwhite one was one that we talked about before, Sean, but maybe hadn't talked about lately. So I think that was a good one as well to bring up. Any of the guys that are currently committed, Dylan, that you feel, Penn State could use them as a leader of the class or somebody who's out there recruiting really hard to get other guys?
Yeah. The name I'd go to off the top of my head would be Kenny Losley. I think they have a couple guys in Philly that they're looking at, and he's a pretty big voice in Philly. I think he's a pretty charismatic guy. He likes to, tweet at guys and nudge them at committing and stuff. He's just one of those type of recruits who talks around, especially with regional guys. So I think he could help in Penn State's attempt to get a couple more guys out of Philly.
Any guys maybe Penn State's going to have to continue to work hard to keep them off the top of your head? Maybe that committed, but keeping doors open?
I don't think so. I think they're pretty solid with everyone right now. John Mitchell is obviously the name that everyone would go to off the top of their head because he's Florida, but I think he loves Penn State and he should be able to stick. I think that'll be a King Mac situation where everyone's like keeping an eye on him, keep turning their head, looking at him, making sure he's still committed. But I think he'll stay. So I wouldn't say anyone right now.
Cool. Yeah, I mean we're just getting to the point where the official visits are going to start, and you can really start seeing where people are really kind of trying to figure out who they really want to see again, and whatnot. I don't want to bust you too much on 2025 because it's so far away, but I am just curious. I mean, is it like we talk 2025 a little bit, or the next class, but I mean our main focus is 2024. Like, we're not going to go crazy down the 2025 rabbit hole. I'm just curious, how much contact do you have with those guys and the 2026 guys, and just I'm just curious. Also, how do you keep up with all of it?
Yeah, I mean, it is tough because I have a job. I'm in school. I don't just sit around and do this all day. But something that doesn't take a ton of time is texting someone back. I don't think it's, I don't have to get back to them in 30 seconds. It's not my girlfriend. They don't need a response from me quick. But Keandre Barker is a 2025 that I'm starting to talk to a good bit. I think he's visiting this coming weekend along with his teammate, Quinnell Farrakhan. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but he's a wide receiver. They're both 4 stars. Keandre is a running back. They're both out of the Woodlands in Texas. Keandre is originally from Arkansas, but they're both guys that are starting to trend Penn State early in the process, 2025. But they're both visiting this weekend, and I think they could both leave Happy Valley as committed prospects. So
cool. That's one to keep an eye on there. Running back from Texas there is Barker. Penn State has a tendency to recruit running back pretty well. Shawn, what else you got for Mr. Dylan?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about Ernest Willer. So he was a name that, again, heard about a month or two back. He's originally from Baltimore, then he transferred to IMG. Any chance, like, maybe we get him up for the blue-white game, maybe some other time in the spring or for an official visit?
I'd probably say no to blue-white, but I think he's probably going to end up official visiting in Happy Valley. He's down at IMG, so that's obviously tough when you don't have your parents there, no family there to drive you around for visits. You're kind of stuck down there a little bit. So he hasn't really been visiting anyone too much recently. I think he visited Maryland last week, just because he was up at home and it was pretty close. I'm sure like an hour drive from Baltimore or something. I'm not sure on the logistics of that, but other than that, he hasn't really visited anyone recently. But I think they could end up getting an official visit out of him. If they really push, I think they could end up with him.
Awesome. Yeah. And Dominic Nichols, too. He was another guy that, again, we heard a lot about. I think he even got crystal ball to Penn State. Is everything still good there, or could he be moving away?
Yeah, he had a couple predictions. I guess that was maybe 6 months ago now. I think he's kind of falling down the board a little bit. He'd be a fringe guy if he called up right now. If they'd accept his commitment, I'm not sure if they'd accept it or not. It'd be one of those close, it depends. But yeah, he's fallen down the board a little bit. I still think he's a really good prospect. He's a 4-star on some sites, good size. He grew up a Penn State fan. So it makes sense, but I just think they're a little higher on some guys right now at the DN spot.
Interesting. Yeah, I just think that's the craziest thing too, as far as the soft offers basically, and how much that's changed even in the last 5-10 years as far as offer, but you don't really have an offer kind of thing. I remember back, and I think did I tell a story yesterday? I don't know when I told this. No, I think I told the story to my friend offline last night. But when I met Coach Gaddis when he was still at Penn State, he was always just talking about how, we only offer a kid when, if they have the offer, they can commit and we'll take them. And that's just kind of not how any of that's done anymore. I mean, nobody does it that way. You'll see offers out to freshmen and high schoolers, and I'm always curious at those offers. Is like, how do you know how they're going to develop? How do you know? I mean, freshman, sophomore in high school, a lot can change. When you get into the junior and seniors, like you have a pretty good idea of how they're going to fill out. But a sophomore in high school everything could change. I mean, Tamir Robinson's a good example of that, right? A guy who started out as maybe a defensive back and just continued to work his way closer to the line of scrimmage. So I think that's always been fascinating to me.
Yeah. I think you can attribute a lot of that offering, but not really offering, to guys committing earlier in the cycle. A lot of staffs just trying to get like their foot in the door before they blow up as a prospect, and it's too late to establish a relationship because maybe they're committing 2 months later. So I think it's just a couple schools started trending that way, and everyone else kind of has to follow along with the early offers, or else you're playing catch up. You're too late to build relationships. So it's just like NIL. Some schools start offering kids money, everyone else has to do it as well to compete and stay on that same level with everyone else.
Yeah, no, that's good. Well, non-recruiting stuff before we let you get out of here. I just curious right now, what are your vibes for the football team? I mean, as far as the offense goes, I mean, have you heard anything as far as the defense goes? Have you heard anything as we have blue and white and I guess just over a week?
Yeah, I mean, it's just hard not to be excited about this team. Everyone's excited about them. I don't have anything really like inside or anything like that, but I'd just say it comes down to Drew Alar and what he can do as a starter. I think it's really great that this is the year that the offensive line's really coming together as far as depth and talent and experience.
No kidding.
And they have those amazing running backs, so everything's not going to be on Drew's shoulders. They can ease him into it. It's not till week 6 or 7 till he really needs to step up and maybe win us a game himself in the shoe maybe at Ohio State. But obviously that defense is going to be insane too. They returned 7 or 8 starters. Manny Diaz is sticking around, which is awesome. He's I still can't believe they got that hire to get a former head coach and proven defensive guy that got in there. He's been awesome. So I think the defense will be a top 10 defense, maybe top 5.
Okay, I was going to let you go, but then it made me think of something that I think you might be able to answer better. We asked Corey Geiger this last night, but I think you might have a better feel for things. Leadership was something that Shawn specifically has been talking about basically since the Rose Bowl. And I'll if anything, the biggest gap in this team is filling those roles. There's a lot of leadership that has left between Clifford and Sutherland and Tig Brown. I mean, just to name a few, but there's a bunch of leadership that they have to replace. You gotta know people from a personality perspective a little bit more on who can be maybe more of those vocal leaders. I'm just curious who you think might kind of step up and fill that void.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't always have to be your starting quarterback, but I do think Drew's coming along. He might not be the most vocal leader, but he might be more of a lead by example type of guy. I think they'll be fine as far as leadership. They might not have it right now, but they got 4 or 5 months till kickoff, 4 months. I think that just kind of naturally occurs in a healthy program like Penn State. Guys eventually step up. I think Caden Wallace, if you're looking for names, Caden Wallace, he'll definitely be a leader on the team. Olu Fashanu, I think he's coming along. Landon Tangwall, a lot of those offensive line guys, they're so experienced. They've been around forever. They're kind of starting to step up as leaders now. Curtis Jacobs, I think he'll be a leader on this team. Johnny Dixon seems like a great guy. He's involved with the community. He leads by example a lot, so I think he could be a leader.
Shawn, anything else for Dylan before we let him skedaddle?
Yeah, love the leadership question, Corey. Very good.
I always think about you. I just want you to know that I'm always thinking about you.
Yeah, I mean,
even when I'm showering.
Bit weird, but okay. Thanks, Matt. So another thing that I'm also concerned about is special teams. What's your concern level? Because I'm probably at a 7 or 8 right now when it comes to the special teams unit as a whole, just because we had to replace starting kicker, starting punter, and the long snapper.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're cycling a lot of guys through, but I wouldn't be too concerned about it. They might not have top level guys like they did last year, even with like Jordan Stout a few years ago. They might not have that level of production, but I don't think it will be. It's not going to be on par with last year, I don't think, but I don't believe it'll be like a true concern where it keeps popping up in games. Tyler Duzansky should be a long snapper. He's been with the team a little bit, so I think he'll be fine. He's doing really well in practice and stuff. Alex Falcons, I guess, will probably be the kicker. I think he's going to win that job, the transfer, and then Riley Thompson, the FAU transfer, I guess should be the starting punter. It's still a battle. I mean, they got 2 guys at each position. I think his name slipped my mind, the kicker. He's a sophomore.
Sahadak?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think he's in competition. He could still be the starting kicker. I think Gabe Nwosu, the big guy, he's going to be kickoffs, which would be pretty cool to see. He's like, I guess 6'6", 280 now was his recent weight on the roster, which is going to be fun to watch him flying down, maybe hitting people Joey Julius style, but that'd be awesome to see. And then I guess with punter, Alex Paquetta's in there a little bit. I still think he's got 1 more year till he starts probably, but he's definitely pushing for at least starting reps this year. I don't think he'll get it over Thompson, but he's in there.
Okay, you can answer this real quick for Shawn, because Shawn kind of had a decent point. Franklin mentioned a couple, maybe it was 2 weeks ago now, that they hadn't been able to really see the punters very much because they've been inside Haluba so much. And Shawn was like, why can't the punters just go out and punt outside while everyone else is inside? I mean, seriously, it's actually a reasonable question. Like, it's not like it's awful weather where the punters can't just step outside. They can warm up and everything inside, just go outside, punt a few balls, and go back in. You have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I mean, they're not going through those drills where they're hitting people every play and stuff. I think they could deal with a little bit of cold weather, get their bus moving a little bit.
Yeah, I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
We're not going to let that go, Shawn. We're going to make sure that gets passed along to anybody who will listen to us.
It will be very funny. Not funny, but it'll probably be interesting for our listeners in November if our punting is like not up to snuff. I'll be like, yeah, who knew the weather gets bad in November too? But they
that's a good point.
all spring. Yeah.
Yeah, you could.
Another sport or another team or something is using the field, but if not, I don't see why not.
You could argue this is a perfect time to get the November practice, because once it's summer, you're not going to see the November until it's too late. This is the best opportunity to get your cold weather practice in.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's just punting football. You can go up to Old Main's lawn and just kick the ball around a little bit if you want.
There we go. Well, actually, I think we just all get out of here at the same time, unless you need to say something bad about Dylan once he leaves, Shawn.
Got nothing bad to say. I really appreciate you coming on, Dylan.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
It was a fantastic time. We appreciate you being able to join us on a Thursday. Hope everyone enjoyed 2 episodes. But you have 3 hours of Hardcore Penn State content this week in April, so enjoy it. Dylan, is it just PSU Dylan everywhere? But I'll just let you promote yourself.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, Twitter. Not as active on there, but I still post a little bit. That's more just personal thoughts and stuff. If you're interested in that, most people probably aren't, but I'll put it out.
We like your personal thoughts.
Thank you. And then I have a TikTok. I'm kind of starting to get that rolling a little bit, coming up with some content ideas for that. So I move up to State College. I'm at Penn State York right now, just commuting there. I was doing the 2+2 plan. So I'll be up in State College. I move up this August. So I should have a lot more content out with the players and stuff like that. So I think that'll get a lot better in a few months.
That's cool. Yeah. So Dylan and I are both moving to State College pretty much around the same time.
Yep.
Shawn, are you gonna make the trip? Or are you gonna just pack up the bags?
I have to announce that I'm keeping my talents here in Scranton, PA.
Dylan, do you need an almost 30-year-old roommate? Because Shawn could be your guy.
Yeah, sure. Let's do
it. That's so funny. Anyway, appreciate everyone for listening. Hopefully you guys have a good rest of y'all's day. Hopefully everyone who's listening has a good rest of their day and a good weekend. Love to have you back on sometime, Dylan, but you have a good blue and white weekend whenever that happens in a week or so.
Yep, you too. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks,
For Shawn Kane, I'm Cory Listoki. You've been listening to Hardcore Penn State Football.